and welcome to Girls in Basketball. I'm Kelly Kinkaid, and I'm so excited to be back starting about one of my favorite things that I love to watch during March through May, which isn't happening now, basketball. And I brought on some special friends to start it off that I know that I'm going to be entertained, and I know you are too. So let me welcome my panel. First, we have Von Carlo.
Hi.
Next, we have Will Strickland. And ending up my panel is Reggie Hawkins.
Flame starter.
Yes, flame starter. So I wanted, I was going to do these long introductions with all of us, but I think that as a whole, we all are basketball fanatics. You agree? We all love basketball.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So we're all fanatics, and I want to start that being lovers of the game. March 11th for me was a day of change. It set a different tone for the NBA with a pause. And now 16 weeks later, we finally have some news that the NBA will restart their season starting on July 30th. And I want to ask each one of you how you feel about this restart. Do you think it should have happened? Do you think it's going to happen? Will, we're going to start with you.
Well, I'm happy it's coming back. I know a lot of people are wringing their hands about the coronavirus and everything like that. Being involved with the National Basketball Players Association through my tournament and knowing kind of what's going on back and forth. I'm glad to see you guys go back, but I want them to be safe at the same time. And I think that when you make a concerted effort between the parties in question, the NBA and the Players Association, they've gone through every single scenario. They've exhausted all the options and decided they're going to play. Obviously, money has a lot to do with it, but 90% of the players have been paid 90% of their salaries, including a lot of the ones under Rich Paul at Clutch have already been paid for the whole season. So they're playing for the love of it. And they're also taking into account the risk that exists in going to Florida and playing in this bubble. So I think, while I'm happy about that, there's a whole lot of hand-wringing around why the players shouldn't go to a state that's had this an incredible spike in COVID cases in the most recent past, and they expect those to go up. But I think that the idea of the bubble is a great idea in theory. We'll see how it works out in actual practice.
Vaughn, how do you think about when you heard the news about the NBA restarting? What did you think?
Well, the first thing I thought, I was excited about it because it's basketball. You miss it, right? And as a comedian, I'm willing to do a show for free and get the coronavirus at this point. I'm dying to just do it, right? Because like he was saying, whatever is in your heart and you love to do it, you just got to do it. It's really not about the money when it comes down to the players, and everybody has their reasons not to do it and do it. But I was excited, but I'm skeptical too. I honestly don't know if it's going to happen. I took a look at all the rules and all the different things, and it looks like they're taking all possible precautions, but we also know it's going to be hard. I have a lot of questions about the bubble. Like, first of all, we know the players are somebody's going to have a Dennis Rodman moment and be like, I got to get out the bubble. And then, like, who are the workers? Who are the people in Orlando working there? They're going home to their families. They're not spending a night there, I don't think. So that's a question. And then I think somewhere like August 30th, I think it is, players' families are allowed to come. So now it's just 1,000 questions. I have 1,000 questions, and I wanted to start, and 9 new players that they didn't announce who that I know of have COVID, have the coronavirus. So it's just like, how are you really gonna do it?
Correct. Reggie?
I think that this is the ultimate gamble. And I think that it's the COVID itself has shown a light within our society how important sport is. Personally, I don't think that we should be moving around, especially in lieu of what's been happening as it pertains to spikes in the spread of the virus. But players within that age range have pretty much been deemed asymptomatic as it pertains to this thing. So, I don't think it's a big gamble for them. And if they're being in that bubble, I guess whatever everybody has is going to be contained within the bubble. But it's a gamble. It's a gamble. And
to be interesting because you do have a lot of players who aren't used to being confined to one place. But I think that Adam Silver and his team are trying their best to plan, because who would have thought that we would be here in July, and at the end of July, starting in August, we're finishing up a season of the NBA basketball season. Let's talk about this restart. So we have 22 teams. So we have 16 teams on each, 8 from each conference, and then we have an additional 6 teams who were 6 games and under who will be invited to the bubble. And when we talk about the COVID, out of the 350 plus people who were tested for COVID, 25 players and counting, let's keep that in mind, are testing for being positive for the corona. Question for all you all: if I wouldn't want this on, if one of the key players of the NBA, such as the LeBron James, Zion Williamson, Giannis, if they got COVID, where do you think the NBA would stand now? Because we still have about 3 weeks before the season starts and a few days before camp starts.
I don't think it's a problem. Any championship, I think what people need to understand about the National Basketball Association is that every single championship in the history of this association has been determined by injury, one way or the other. There's been a key injury somewhere or another. COVID would be equivalent to an injury. If you lose a player for 10 to 14 days, really, if you think about it, if they're quarantined for 10 to 14 days, in NBA time, that's maybe 4 or 5 games. That can make the difference between you winning and losing the season, give you an opportunity to find out what else you have on your roster, and for that player to come back and actually play, depending upon when this happens. So there are a lot of variables that we won't be able to answer until we actually go through the thing. All we're doing right now is speculating. But, if somebody like a LeBron or Giannis, I wouldn't even call Zion that guy, but I get it. They give Pelicans an opportunity to play into the A spot. I feel bad about the real rookie of the year, Ja Morant, and Ja we must trust, because he's led his team to the playoffs for more of a franchise that, for the past couple of years since, the grind time guys left, are at a disadvantage to me in a way. But at the end of the day, I think we just obviously we have to just go through it and find out what's going to happen. But I look at it like an injury, like anything else.
Correct. Go ahead.
I 100% agree with that, with the injury, but with the injuries. However, with coronavirus, it spreads so quick and fast. You could be talking about more than one player, more than one key player on the team at the same time. How often are you going to have like physical injuries with multiple key players on a team during the playoffs at the same time? And the way this stuff spreads, you could lose 3 and 4, but you could lose your whole team.
Right. Right. And when we talk about COVID, but let's talk about also the players who are opting out because of COVID. We just heard Victor Oladipo will not be playing with the Indiana Pacers for this for the restart. We have Avery Bradley, who's not playing with the Lakers. Now they signed J.R. Smith. Do you think players with an injury, is it smart for them to sit out? And then players who just like, I don't want to be down with this, like Wilson Chandler, I'm staying home with my family. Is that wise for them to do that?
I'm not judging any of them for any of their decisions. One, if I'm a player and I have an injury, it's not worth risking my life and the injury on top of that with COVID. So that's one. But I think they're being fined if they don't have any COVID-related reasons to not go. And I'm personally not judging anybody for making that decision, especially if you live with older people in your family or something. You could risk their life just by doing it. I don't know. I think that if you opt out, it's okay. If you decide, it's okay too. But I don't know. My favorite opt-in was J.R. Smith. I love J.R. Smith like Trump supporters love Trump. It's unreasonable. I'm very excited about J.R. Smith playing again.
Well, let's talk about with the J.R. Smith signing with his other clutch people, with LeBron James and other players. The Lakers currently, when they start back on the season, they are #1 in the Western Conference Finals. How do you think adding J.R. Smith to the team will help them remain #1? Because their first game on July 30th is with the Clippers. And I was there at the Christmas game, and it's still an interesting matchup. Reggie or Will, what do you think about that as far as J.R. Smith being added to the Lakers?
You go, Will.
Well, obviously you add a guy who has the experience of playing in 4 NBA Finals with LeBron James. I think you cannot discount the experience factor in that. So he's not afraid of the moment. He's had some bonehead plays in the moments. He also had some great plays in the moments. If you recall, everyone's going to try and make his legacy about him not knowing what the clock was or what the time was left on the clock in the 2017 finals, or was it 2017? No, 2018 finals, if I'm not mistaken. But they don't recall that he was the one who slowed up Andre Iguodala just enough so LeBron could get back to make the most incredible block in NBA history in 2016 and lead them to the championship. So that's part of his legacy as well. I think you can't discount JR's experience and also the familiarity that he has not only with LeBron, but the idea that he can come in, he'll play his role, he understands his role. I think that's really key when you do this restart, is having guys who understand their roles and will fit into those roles immediately, like a Dion Waiters who played with LeBron in Cleveland for a bit, and like JR who played with him in Cleveland as well.
Yeah, but we're talking about J.R. Smith here. We're not talking about some perennial all-star. We're talking about J.R. Smith. Like Will said, the last time we saw J.R. Smith, he was making an incredibly stupid play that cost LeBron and these guys a championship. So I don't think that J.R. Smith is going to be a big game changer as it pertains to the Lakers. I think that, to be quite honest with you, Avery Bradley is going to be a game changer for him not being there, being a defensive specialist that he is. So, and is a possibility that Dwight Howard, I'm hearing, is not going to be on this stacked team that LeBron put together. So, those are the type of factors that I'm seeing.
That was a real slick stab.
We're playing nice here. Let's take off the gloves now. Let's get into this conversation.
I mean, if LeBron still believes in JR after all of that, I still believe in JR. Let's get it done.
Talking about the guy that was just caught down the street beating up somebody to touch his car. Come on, man.
Be careful whose window you bust.
That's right.
Hey, if you didn't know before, you're gonna learn today.
That's right.
What I'll say about what you said. Obviously, you can't replace Avery Bradley, which sounds crazy to say in any context.
Right.
But in the proper context, because of who he's playing with, and this is what tells you how great LeBron James is, and I'm not going to get on the soapbox about LeBron. I'm just talking about facts. That Avery Bradley, before he came to the Lakers, who was talking about Avery Bradley? They talked about his injuries and not playing that much. But with Avery Bradley as the third best defender on your team in the Western Conference, where they said, "Oh, if LeBron never played in the Western Conference, he wouldn't do what he did in the Eastern Conference." Okay, looks like he's doing it right now. So with Avery Bradley, they were a great defensive team. Here's a guy who will take the most difficult offensive player on your team and give you 25 to 28 minutes a night in the playoffs. Make shots. He's making almost 40% of his 3-pointers. from the field, so he's hitting open shots. And I think what he gives you defensively, you cannot replace. However, all you have to do is look, and this is where the thing you said about Dwight means something. If Dwight opts in and he comes down there to play, despite what he's been saying about, Black Lives Matter and then making, social change and talking about social injustice, if he opts in, they're going to look to play that second unit like they used Dwight Howard in the 2009 season, where he had just a bunch of shooters around Dwight. So you have guys who can make plays off the bounce, and Dion Waiters, and then a J.R. Smith, who will make alley-oops and easy dunks for Dwight Howard. And if they throw it in the post to him, because he'll be a willing passer, and you know that either LeBron or AD are going to be in the court at all times, one or the other, you're going to have wide open shots for Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith. That is an optimal situation that you're going to have to trade a little defense for offense, but I think it's a reasonable trade-off.
When we look at the additional 6 teams that are in this 22-team bubble, that bottom half, Memphis was the last, it was number 8. But when we look at Portland, the Pelicans, Portland for me, when we look at all these teams, do you think one of the 6 teams that were added into this 22 can bump a Memphis or even a Dallas in the rankings to go to the playoffs? And the 6 teams were Portland, New Orleans, Sacramento, San Antonio, and Phoenix, as far as on the Western Conference. And I asked that question because, in my opinion, before the season paused, I felt like the champion for this season will come out of the West and not from the East. Will, you can start.
Okay. Well, I said a little bit earlier that I thought it was unfair to the 8th seed. And I really believe that the season should have started off with guys playing inter-squad scrimmages that they actually showed on air like they do the summer league, and letting them get back into shape and then play actual playoff games, because you had played about between 63 and 67 games, which is basically 77 to 82% of the season. Mm-hmm. But however, they're playing these games, these 8 games now, because they need to fulfill local television contracts. You have to play at least 70 games. I get that. Right? So I get the economics of it. But I think in a way it does a disservice to a team like Memphis, like I said, who had really played well this year under John Morant's leadership as a young guy. And when people are complaining that their teams get a chance to make the playoffs, well, you had 63 to 67 games to put yourself in position to make the playoffs. What if you really believe that these extra 8 games are going to make a difference one way or the other? I guess it's exciting from a gambler standpoint, but from a player standpoint, I don't see Sacramento making any real noise. San Antonio was not missed the playoffs in years, might miss the playoffs for the first time in 20 some odd years. And then you have a team like Portland, who was in the Western Conference Finals last year, who's dealt with injury after injury after injury all year and are still in the mix. They have an opportunity. So I guess the best of both worlds is to have this, play-in tournament. I thought the top 6 teams from each conference should have been given buys and play inter-squad scrimmages, and then you let these other guys play a play-in tournament between 8 and 12, or 7 and 12. Let them play in and see what goes. But you don't play enough games to try and knock one of these teams that's worked so hard at this point. They weren't saying, okay, let's play this well until COVID comes. We're going to play and put ourselves in a position to be in the playoffs. So they did that, and I think it's a disservice to a team like Memphis. But I don't see anything changing in the East, and I really don't see Dallas or Memphis really getting knocked out either.
Interesting. Reggie, your thoughts?
Well, this whole play-in tournament is once again, it's all rigged. It's meant for my guy Big Gumbo to enter the tournament. Big
Gumbo meaning Zion Williamson?
Zion Williams,
okay.
Big Gumbo.
Okay.
And Will, you can't dismiss the fact that Big Gumbo and the Pelicans were coming on strong at the end of this season, and we deserve, in all fairness and in full disclosure, I am a former resident of St. Charles Parish in Louisiana, so I have an affinity for that area. But Big Gumbo needs a chance, fair chance, because they were on a roll to get into the playoffs. So, and the commissioner understands that Big Gumbo brings eyeballs to the set, not John Morant. Nobody cares about what's happening down there in Memphis.
Come on now, you gonna
Oh, you
get
gonna
off.
let me? Is this a
You gonna
fair
get
forum here to speak?
Come on.
So this is a big gumbo play-in, which he's going to do. And honestly speaking, I think that big gumbo and his team were gelling at the time. And honestly, they might be a threat in the playoffs to knock off, particularly a wounded team like the Lakers.
Vaughn, talking about.
Well, he did say some key words. He did say some key words that I think Vaughn pointed out earlier about Big Gumbo. He did say they were on a roll and they were gelling. So if you put those together, I can see how, you know, a couple of beignets away from being, you know, out of the playoffs might work for Big Gumbo. But I appreciate you so much, Reggie.
Jelly roll. Fine, the Western Conference, as far as the 6 teams that were coming in, Reggie has a case for New Orleans. In my opinion, I was really rooting for Portland because they were right there. I also thought that they were just gelling and had an opportunity to make to the 8th. It was still 8 games left, and I still felt like Portland could have knocked off Memphis. You just never know.
Full disclosure, Kelly? Full disclosure?
I'm listening.
You are friends with Damian Lillard. You've been known to wear every pair of his sneakers. So be full disclosure, like I was with Big Gumbo. Full disclosure here. If anybody on this has some type of tie to somebody, Vaughn, let it out.
Look, so I 100% agree. I was rooting for Portland too. You could know him or not know him. You can't deny Dame. I mean, come on, that's a stretch.
So Dame too? Dame is your friend too? Full disclosure.
No, Dame. No, I agree with Will. I agree with Kelly. One thing I will like to say is if everything is rigged, just remember it's also rigged when it's in your favor too. Because people like throwing that rigged stuff around except for when stuff they want to see happen. So I'll leave it at that.
I don't believe that it's rigged because these players have been sitting for 16 weeks. And I think that the first couple of games, getting that dust off of everyone as much as you're training. Will, you're a basketball player. You've played basketball. What's the longest time that you were, you stopped and played? You know, what do you think as much as we see all the players in conditioning now, how do you feel when they get on the court? The Clippers and the Lakers, that's their first game on the court together. As far as an athlete, how do you think that's going to be?
Well, you know, I think this period, I'm older now, so I don't play as much as I used to play, but I still play. And this has probably been the longest period I haven't played outside of being injured in my life. And it's odd because I'm going crazy. And, I tell people all the time, you're not a real baller if every door stop in your house doesn't have fingerprints above it right now because you've been doing layups and shooting shots above your door. Imaginary because you can't go to the park and play or go to the gym and play. But I think that, the top teams, again, from a discipline standpoint, they're going to be prepared. The top guys are going to be prepared. I don't question what, Kawhi Leonard is doing. I don't question what Paul George is doing. I don't question what LeBron, Anthony Davis are doing. I don't question those top guys. What I do question, what you do need to win a championship is to make sure that the other guys are as disciplined. If you don't know that Lou Williams is going to opt in, that's a big, you're losing 20 points off your bench and a fire starter because he hasn't opted in yet.
Now, Lou,
right?
he confirmed.
I thought there was a deadline though. Wasn't the deadline like June 24th?
Yeah, but I think it was the 24th or something. But even if he is, so, the noise they were making about, whether they play or not, obviously didn't mean that much because he's going to play. So whatever the case is, they play that first game. They're going to have weeks of quarantine and inter-squad scrimmages before they actually play the game. The significance of that game to some might be minimal because you don't know if the top guys are going to play major minutes in those games. Like what you don't want to do toward the end of the season is have your top guys injured. And most of the time at the end of the season, you try to get your bench minutes and time on the court to play and see how the second units gel so they're prepared for the playoffs. So how much Kawhi Leonard, how much Paul George, how much LeBron James, how much Anthony Davis we actually see is going to be critical to that. I think they will play in that first game for sure, but consequent games after that, you'll see them less and less as they get prepared for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, but hold on. I take exception with you talking about Will. You're a basketball player. Will is not the only basketball player on this Zoom. Straight up.
Yes.
I was
Reggie.
hold on. I was third team all Louisiana, Destrehan High School. Will ain't the only baller on this Zoom. I don't know about Vaughn, and I
Reggie,
definitely know.
I feel bad.
I know you play volleyball. I played basketball. You understand?
Reggie, I don't want to dish you before you start telling Al Bundy stories about your high school glory.
Let me tell you something. Wet. Straight up. Will, I played at Terry Park. Haven't been uptown like I get it, but all through Brooklyn, I played basketball, Louisiana, around the world, Panama. So let's not do this whole athlete. I'm an athlete.
I stand corrected. I apologize, Reggie. As far as the conditioning,
might take Will some time to warm up, but I walk on the court wet.
Okay. So as an athlete,
okay,
how do you think the players coming onto the court 16 plus? Well, it'll be about 20 some weeks. Well, they start. I'm gonna say 16 weeks because training camp starts next week. The conditioning of the player, young or old.
Well, you know, my mantra in life is if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Okay.
And you like that one, right, Vaughn? You nod your head left and right. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Okay.
So the bottom line is the teams. I guess the bigger thing is, do we add an asterisk to this season because of the limited amount of time?
Absolutely.
My thing is, in which I love about the Clippers going to catch everybody by surprise. The Clippers going to catch everybody by surprise because they haven't been all in the videos, all on the radio, all on Zoom. The Clippers have just been doing their thing on the low without the clout. And I'm telling you right now, Kawhi Leonard is going to do it again. Like Will said, he's had injuries. He's been on load management. Load management is not something that people should frown upon. It's smart. It's smart. And honestly, with all those miles on LeBron, he probably should be doing some load management too. But guess what? It's here now.
I mean, but when you talk about the legends, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, they didn't do load management. I mean, load management is another time, another discussion. But I do agree when we talk about the Clippers. I want to move over to the Eastern Conference, but
why?
The Clippers team, which is pretty much going to be intact, is going to be playing a different Lakers team. The restart now.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts? And Vaughn, we can ask you. I want to ask this to you, being that Avery won't be there because the Lakers and the Clippers game, it's like 2-1 now as far as their series. The addition with JR. What's your opinion on? He has a rapport with LeBron. He is an experienced player. This new Laker team that's being formed now, and the Clippers team that's been together all season. That matchup because they're 1-2 in the conference on the Western Conference.
Well, that's going to be a tough one. But, you know, when J.R. Smith is hot, he's hot. When he's not, he's not. We already know that. And he's not going to, like, disappear on defense either. So you got that advantage, too. And you have that they gel. And you have LeBron. He brought teams that shouldn't have been in the finals to the finals. He has a resume to go off of. We do know this. So yes, the Clippers, they're all together, but let me just say this. I'm not sure that quiet Kawhi is going to show up because we already know he will quietly dip out and not show up and be like, oh, my health for quite a long time. So I'm surprised that people are so comfortable with the idea that he's even going to show up.
Right. You know, Reggie, you're saying, why are we talking about the Western Conference? I think that we need to talk about the Eastern Conference. We still have the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, the Heat. The Heat were turning up.
Before you move on to the Eastern Conference, Kelly?
Sure. Friends.
No, I want to address the whole asterisk. The whole asterisk thing is funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole asterisk thing is funny to me. The season is a season no matter when it ends. when we had the 50-game lockout season back in '99, the champion was still the champion, whether it's 50 games or not. And 2012 season, they had 66 games. So what it is what it is. And the people who are calling it asterisks, when you flip it on and say, yeah, it should be an asterisk season because whoever wins this will have won the most challenging season in the history of the association. So you can't have it both ways because we see it's quite transparent why people want to put an asterisk on it. But there are no such things as asterisks because the champion stays a champion no matter what you do. You can talk about all kinds of factors that go into it. Well, if Kevin Durant wasn't injured, yeah, but he was, and so they lost. That's how that works. Life works like that. You have to deal with it. If you want to put an asterisk on it because it makes you feel better, go ahead and do that. But they never do that in the NBA record books, and that's where it really counts. So, on to Eastern Conference.
Off to the Eastern Conference, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. I still feel like there is Giannis is still focused on a couple of things: the NBA title and the MVP title. The Raptors, the Celtics, the Heat were turning up before the system. I'm used to the who thing from Reggie, but Reggie, they are a factor. I don't want to throw out your 76ers team because you have a affinity towards Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, I know, but they have been quiet. You know, I think that this time has been good for Joel and his knees. I think that this is going to be good. You know, the Pacers, this is going to be a hit for them for Victor sitting out because he was just getting back in. He's had a lot of injury problems for the past 2-3 seasons. So I just really feel, what's your predictions as far as the Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, Heat, as far as who's promising coming out of the Eastern Conference? Reggie, let's hear from you. Let's start. You fire starter.
Since you asked,
yes.
Who cares? Let's run it down.
Why do you say that?
Let's run it down. We all know that the champion's coming out of the West, so we might as well use the duration of the time that we have together to talk about the Western Conference because the champion will be coming out of the Western Conference.
But if it doesn't, I want, before you start, there has been 16 weeks that people have had time to condition. So just for you to X out a team from the Eastern Conference is unfair based upon what?
Before I was so rudely interrupted.
Absolutely. I have to make that statement.
Moderator, before I was so rudely interrupted.
Yes.
I thought that this was a fair and balanced panel, but I see that there's a bias. Anyway, I digress. Here's the thing. Have we found Giannis since the last playoffs? Because guess what? The whole NBA figured out the combination to that lock. Huh? Kawhi and his team found the combination of that lock. He was rendered null and void. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Why? I don't know. Because Ben Simmons couldn't hit a basket on the side of a barn if it was 20 foot wide. You know this. Come on, Will. Stop it, Vaughn. You know.
I haven't said anything.
Ben Simmons,
I haven't said anything yet.
Simmons sucks.
I haven't said anything yet.
Reggie.
You know Joel Embiid is eating right now. Joel Embiid is eating. He never stopped eating. Who else are we talking about? So why are we talking about the Eastern Conference?
I'll talk about the Eastern Conference.
Yes, the Eastern.
Actually want to kind of look at a couple of teams. Kelly, you brought up the Heat.
Absolutely.
But, you also brought up Indiana earlier with VO opting out. You have to think that Indiana has been playing the past 2 seasons without VO, and they're still one of the most dangerous teams in the East. Which, you know, to some people, being a dangerous team in the East doesn't mean a whole lot. But they were 1 game away from beating LeBron in 2018 out there in the playoffs with VO, right? And I think they're going to be competitive, and they're going to make you at least work for it, you know. So they're going to be one of those teams that somebody could be 1 injury away and 1 COVID virus indication away from, you know, losing to the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah.
So let's not discount them and the Miami Heat, but really the 4 teams in the East, or the 3 teams I see, Milwaukee, Boston, and Toronto, are the ones that need to be respected. Toronto is a champ. You have to give the champ their due. They've won more games without Kawhi than they did with him last year, and that's regular season.
Toronto is
but
not
you have
the
to
champ.
understand that again. Hold up, Reggie. Let me finish. The most important thing is we have to respect the fact that this core unit has championship experience, and they won it against easily one of the best teams of the 2010s and the Golden State Warriors. So
Right.
to say that they're not a real factor would be dismissive of them. To look at, Milwaukee, and even though a lot of people have figured out what you do to the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs and what you saw in that last game that Milwaukee played in Los Angeles against the Lakers, where LeBron guarded him after Anthony Davis got 3 early fouls, showed a whole lot about what they could do offensively and defensively against Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee is still there because they have the wins, but do they have the thing that they have to win the Eastern Conference first before I even believe they're a real title contender? Right. So I'll give Toronto, and I'll give the team that won 2 of the last 3 Eastern Conference finals, or made it to the Eastern Conference finals 2 out of the last 3 years, in the Boston Celtics. Them giving an advantage because of the experience of a Jaylen Brown at a young age, because of the experience of a Jason Tatum at a young age. And the key here is what happens with Gordon Hayward and whether he's there or not. It sounds crazy, and that Kemba Walker's going to have an opportunity to show his wares in the playoff game. But I feel like Boston might end up being the team that overcomes both of those teams and possibly make it to the NBA Finals.
But
I agree.
That team imploded last year. With
It's a different team.
With the whole Kawhi debacle, that team imploded. And I just want to ask you, are you seriously talking about Toronto without Kawhi Leonard?
Absolutely.
Why would you do?
Absolutely. They're number 2.
Why would anybody blaspheme like that? I don't understand.
Based on what? Based on what?
Based on what? Man crush. He got a man crush on Kawhi.
Based on, and that's cool. Based on the fact that Kawhi Leonard's back is still hurting for carrying all of those people in Toronto to a championship. Dragged them to a championship.
LeBron's back must really be busted.
You know,
let's stick with Toronto for a second.
Okay.
Okay, because I have intimate knowledge of what happens with that franchise.
Right.
If you looked at their recent history, it's not like they just showed up in the playoffs and Kawhi just took them somewhere they've never been before.
That's what I saw.
They were in. I'm just speaking to the facts of the matter. They needed that one piece to take them over the top. Kawhi Leonard ended up being that piece. Congratulations. Kawhi Leonard has never been on a team built from scratch that he was the lead guy on and take that team to the finals. He's always gone to quality, already pre-made teams. So just add water or just add Kawhi. I get it. And he did his job in one of the most historic playoff runs in NBA history. To give the credit, the devil his due. But to dismiss the growth of Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, and that Kyle Lowry finally got over his yips in the playoffs. Once you break that door down, it's hard to the horse got the experience, and they have a really good coach in Nick Nurse, and what they know how to do together. Marc Gasol looks in great shape over this time off. The younger players feel more invested in the team. OG Anunoby is injury-free. They have all the tools to make it to the NBA Finals again.
Well, I was told that when we get up there in heaven, they're going to have a big screen. And all of our sins are going to be up on that big screen. For you to blaspheme like you just did and not say that the 2-time NBA Finals MVP and champion Kawhi Leonard didn't skull drag that whole country to a championship is blasphemous.
Oh my goodness.
That's a little extreme, but I get it. You got to reach. I'm not mad at the reach, but I never disrespected and said that Kawhi Leonard wasn't the difference. I just said he was the piece that took them over the top. But let's not act like they were just so moribund and so terrible that all of a sudden Kawhi came up and changed.
Well, I have to get out of that with him. Oh goodness. You know, when you talk about the Indiana Pacers, actually someone that you like, Reggie, Malcolm Brogdon, number 7. Malcolm Brogdon had tested positive for COVID-19.
No!
Yes.
It's over.
Yeah. He tested positive, so he won't be with them at the start because he has to do the 14-day quarantine, which is going to be starting in the training camp. But then he has to get tested again. So hopefully he'll be ready for the playoff for the start of the season.
Number 7 is it. Hey, quick story, Vaughn, Will. I had the pleasure of watching number 7 live at the Barclays Center. He lit the Nets up like a Christmas tree, to the point where the whole stadium turned on me for watching such a magnificent performance. Wow, number 7, that kid's the truth.
And Sabonis did well that game as well.
I hate to agree with Reggie, and I respect and not debate anything that Will said about the Eastern Conference and every team that he spoke on. However, the one thing you did say, Will, is that they're mostly praying for an injury or a COVID case to beat the.
No, I understand. I said that they're one that their team, you know, whoever Indiana's playing against could be an injury or a COVID diagnosis away from being in the team. Not that they would wish that. I would never have.
No.
I would wish something like that.
They wished it. I was saying if that's their way to win, then is that a win?
Yeah, it comes all the same.
I agree with Reggie and say, really, the Eastern Conference is irrelevant.
Well, I mean, if it was irrelevant, they wouldn't have included them in the teams that are going down to the bubble. But you know, I get it. It was irrelevant when LeBron James was playing in the East. The East was weak. Now that he's in the West, the East is stronger. Like, I mean, I get it. I understand why it's happening. You know, when you have to defend the honor of another grown man and Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who hasn't played in years, I understand it. It's okay. His legacy is set. LeBron James still has chapters to write. So do all these other players. Yeah. I'm enjoying the opportunity to see this season play itself out because it is the most unique season in the history of the league. You know,
I agree.
It really
and is. That these guys are taking the opportunity to play through this. And a lot of them, like I said earlier, are not playing for the money. They got their money for the season for the most part. They're playing for pride, and they want to see some conclusion. They want closure to the season in a way that befits professional athletics and what it's built on in the first place, which is to crown a champion.
2 teams. What's your thoughts on, there's a lot of talk about this second bubble that they want to let the remaining 8 teams play in Chicago in September. Well, it was reported that Steve Kerr said, even if this was a second bubble, Curry wasn't playing anyway. Does the second, I agree, but does it matter of the second bubble being talked about? Because I know that Atlanta was a team that was disappointed that they weren't going to the bubble in Orlando. Do we care to see the remaining teams of Charlotte, Minnesota, Golden State, Chicago, New York Knicks, Detroit, Atlanta, and the Cavs? Do we care, Will?
Well, Vaughn was really, she was really passionate about what you were saying. So I would defer to Vaughn first.
No, go ahead.
I'm well,
everything. Go.
For me, I think it's superfluous. I think it's you know, you don't know what you have in Orlando already to start planning something for the other 8 teams. And I think what makes more sense now, all right, let me talk 2 scenarios real quick. If they do have the bubble in Chicago with the other 8 teams, the only people that should go are players with at least 0 to 3 years of service, in my opinion, unless they are like star players, you know, or the top players for their teams, right? Mm-hmm. You let those guys go. You're not going to have veterans like Steph Curry, like Draymond Green, like Klay Thompson. Those guys are not going to go to that bubble. So that's one thing if they do it like that. What I think is more important and what is more than necessary is to create smaller bubbles in the individual cities to prepare for the 2021 season so that you have all those protocols in place when you're in your arena and you're dealing with your players, and those young guys understand that, okay, if we have to, every team in the NBA has an alternate, or they have a practice gym that has the works. You know, you got food catered, you have places you can sleep, you can work out, you shower, everything there. If they have to isolate those guys at the beginning of the season, do the same thing, right? You have an opportunity to do that now and test that in those 8 markets and see how that works. And if the protocols will work, so you can prepare and use that as a litmus test for the 2021 or 2020, 2021 season for the rest of the teams. I think that's the most sensible way to go about this, is to not have the bubble in Chicago and let these other cities do their own thing and see what they can do to implement protocols for the next season.
Vaughn, what's your thoughts on the second bubble?
Keep it a home base, like he said, and let's figure out Orlando. I'm nervous about that. Like, if I had my choice, if I'm Adam Silver, I would be like, nah, everybody just chill. We'll figure this out another time. We'll start fresh next year, because I don't want to see anybody's lives being risked. But I respect the players and their decisions and their league and what they're doing. And as soon as it comes on, I'm gonna be watching. But at the same time, all of this risk is just, it's too much. Let's figure out Orlando. Stop trying to figure out Chicago. And I like the idea of making a home base thing.
Right.
It's
Reggie,
like, you don't have to get on an airplane. I don't know.
Right. Reggie, your thoughts on the second bubble?
Reggie got that contrarian face on right now.
Wait.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm entertaining it. Reggie, the second bubble, your thoughts?
All we need is one Petri dish. So all we need is one Petri dish down there in Orlando. And honestly speaking, we don't need all of these, as they would say in New York, bum teams playing. See, don't drop your head, Kelly. Lift up your head. We don't need all these bum teams with no chance at anything in an environment spreading germs. If we're gonna risk it, let's risk it on the winners, not the losers. Stay home.
Oh God.
Wash your hands.
Because obviously winners' germs are better than losers' germs.
Listen, hey, listen.
Let's go next.
Here's my thing. Honestly speaking, if I'm Adam Silver, we could say David. If I'm Adam Silver, I'm telling you right now, LeBron James is in all the people that really matter, I'm putting them in bubble wrap. And if LeBron James test comes, I'm keeping that confident and letting him keep rocking. LeBron can be the only super spreader out there, because we need LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and everybody that makes this thing competitive to be there. Because they're out, it's over.
Before we end tonight, your predictions, who will be the 2019-2020 NBA champion before we start this season? Vaughn.
Oh my God. It's like the most ridiculous prediction ever.
Yes.
Any man's game at this point, but I'm gonna have to go with LeBron.
Okay.
Lakers.
Will, who's your prediction?
I wish I had one, to tell you the truth.
Come on, Will. Come on, stop it. Wavering.
I'm not riding the fence at all. I'm just saying that, while I want to see the Lakers win. I do. There are so many factors that are involved that could change the fortunes. We might have a team that wins the championship that we never thought would win the championship.
Exactly.
So that's the hardest thing to deal with right now, is that the biggest X factor in all this, outside of generally, like, we keep talking about LeBron James. When he was in the Eastern Conference, I used to call the Eastern Conference Finals the LeBron Raymond James Invitational.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we don't have that certainty, and because of air of uncertainty, that actually makes the season more exciting, even though it's in the face of danger, and that's really tough. I want to see the Lakers win, but I wouldn't be upset if Milwaukee won, if Toronto won, if the Clippers won and finally became, a franchise that rid themselves of their past with Donald Sterling and everything else, and being perennial losers for years and years and years. But I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't be upset if the Miami Heat won, because I like the way they look, and Eric Spoelstra had never really got his due as a head coach. So I really do like what the Miami Heat bring to the table.
Okay. And Reggie, your prediction for the NBA champions?
Well, Let me be the one in the room that doesn't flip-flop or waver to the left or to the right. Give you some wishy-washy answer.
I picked the
This
team.
one might win and that one might win and I like this and I like that. You know, let me be the one in the room that sits up straight and mans up and tells you straight up, Kawhi Leonard and the Los Angeles Clippers will crash this LeBron Invitational and bust a bubble because that team is set. It's the only team that Adam Silver and the NBA is fearing right now. Mark it.
I definitely want to have you all back as we
You're not gonna have me back.
going through.
Show.
Let me tell you, Reggie teeters on my NBA liking me and stuff. He's a fire starter, you know. But hey, you do you.
The other
comments
was canceled on her.
Your comments are your comments. But I want to thank my guests today, Will Strickland, Von Carlo, and Reggie Hawkins. This has been a great conversation, a strong conversation, an interesting conversation. And I want to stay tuned for more basketball talk with me. Like we said, the first game is July 30th. First games will be Utah and New Orleans Pelicans.
Ooh.
And the game that we are all going to be looking at is the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers. And, you know, I'm excited. We still got to keep our ears to the streets to seeing who is going to come up with COVID. Are they going to stay strong? And how this training camp is going to be. I'm excited about it. But follow me at Kelly Kinkaid, KELLYKINKAID. And before I end, Von, what's coming up with you? You are a stand-up comedian. You also have a podcast, Coach Von. How can people follow you?
You can go to CoachVonPodcast.com. That's VON, CoachVonPodcast.com. I have no shows coming up right now because I'm not doing any shows. I'll still work for free, but I'm scared of COVID. So there you go. And follow me on all my social media is the same at Von Carlo, Twitter, TikTok, all of that stuff, Instagram. Keep up with me there. Hopefully I'll have some shows soon if there's, I guess, a vaccination that doesn't turn us into zombies.
And Will, how can people follow you? What's upcoming for you right now? I know that you also have a lot of different basketball endeavors, which have been changed for you because of COVID throughout the country.
Throughout the globe, actually.
The globe, yeah.
Yeah, I do a global basketball tournament with the National Basketball Players Association, Spalding, which is no longer the official basketball of the NBA. And my man Barbado Garcia, called Full Court 21, all world. And we do it in over 30 cities on 4 continents around the world. And because of COVID, we're not going to be able to do it this summer. So that's disappointing. But, you know, being able to stay involved and engaged and knowing what's going on with the league and basketball and everything else, and just making sure that I get back to teaching and get off this Parts Unknown tour, I'll be all right.
How can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at W_Strickland1. You can follow me on the IG at Will Strickland1, Facebook, Full Court 21 Canada, which is the world's most unique basketball tournament. Check it out. It's the only 1-on-5 application of the game anywhere in the world as a tournament in tournament form. And yeah, like I said, thanks for having me, Kel.
Thank you. And our favorite guy, Reggie Hawkins. Reggie, you are, in addition to being a basketball fanatic, you are a philanthropist, and hip hop is your thing. You are the operations and program director of the Taste channel on Dash Radio. What can we look forward to you in the upcoming days?
Well, first and foremost, Kelly, thank you for using me as a fill-in today. I know that the guests that you had scheduled canceled on you and you had to go with me, but you know, I think I did my thing. Second of all, Will, I need a spot on that basketball team with them over 30s. I could do my thing out there. But the Culture and Entertainment radio station, platform that we have is based in is based in Bushwick, where we do a lot of creative stuff. As you can see, our logo in the back. And also, during the midst of this COVID time, we started a brand new radio station on the Dash Radio platform called Taste. And it's an exciting platform. We have a full service. It's a full service platform, and we're not just concentrating on hip hop like we did on my last couple of platforms that a lot of people know about. We're going to actually be doing about culture. So Will and Vaughn, you know, there's a place at the cross for you guys on our platform called Taste. Look it up on the Dash Radio platform, and I will be starting my show in the early, what are we saying, Kelly? Right before summer ends.
Yes.
It's going to be called The Review with Reggie Hawkins. And I would love for you guys to come on my platform where it will be an unbiased situation where you won't be lured into groupthink as you were today. Thank you. Oh, and to get in contact with us, I'm too sneaky to have my own Facebook and all that stuff. So my Instagram is the station's Instagram is at Taste Radio 1.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank my guests. Once again, I'm Kelly Kinkaid. You can follow me on all platforms. Kelly Kinkaid, Kelly Kinkaid. I'm just a girl who loves basketball. See you next time.